I'd like to leave you with this important message that if there is a disaster, what gets things moving is actually the private sector. You guys. I was always asked, Mayor, is your city functioning? I said, who controls the utilities? It's the private sector. Who controls the commercial banks? It's the private sector. The commerce, it's the private sector. Transportation, it's the private sector. What's government here? It's basically security, law and order, creating an atmosphere conducive for what? For a good and strong economy. So it was very difficult. But there I saw that there were too many mindsets that we have to learn. In fact, in Tacloban, it's really common that we never check the weather. We only start checking the weather when we see it's getting dark. And we ask ourselves, is there a storm? Did you hear if there's a storm? Yeah, I did. But now, even it's bright and sunny, people check the weather. Now, when you say 300 kilometers or super typhoon, people don't hide in the basement. They go to the second floor because of a storm surge, a tsunami possibly, if an earthquake comes. But we also study the angle of the storm when it comes. We used to laugh, you know. I used to actually tease my wife, you know, when she goes around the city and at the back of the car there are life jackets. I said, why do you need life jackets? But those life jackets were the ones that saved our two daughters. And that's the new mindset that I'd like to share with you. It was more difficult for us when I was talking to the mayors in the different municipalities because the farmers are not used to cell phones. But because we got so used to city life, listening to the radio, there was no radio station that we could pick up. Nothing. And unfortunately, even the national officials that were there, for one reason or another, did not have a sat phone. So they did not know. Nobody knew what was going on in Tacloban City. The storm hit us at 7 in the morning, and the first news that got out was actually in the evening when they found out that Tacloban was devastated. Now, I was fortunate, the city was fortunate to partner at that time, after 3 weeks, to partner with UN Habitat to have now a holistic approach on how do we do now, how do we move on. How do we move on and have now, yes, you always hear of resilience, build back better, all that. How do you relate? How does it affect us? And I learned personally, build back better the lives of our people. You touch on economy, you touch on social services, you touch on the environment. How do you make all of this sustainable? How do you make it work? And it was difficult in the beginning because it's like you get all the help for first response, and yet part of first response is shelter, which is what we needed most. Till today. Till today. We need 14,500 houses. Now, there's so many mindsets. I said, again, which is what I'm advocating when I speak in different forums. For example, shelter, permanent houses, that's what's needed. But the standard practice is we build permanent houses that can withstand 250 km/h winds. And it will cost 300,000 pesos. Fine. But if you don't maintain it after 3 years, it will only withstand 150 km/h. So the locals say, Mayor, why don't we make a deal? Why don't you build us a simple, native, light material house costing 50,000 and give us the 250,000 for business or livelihood? Then I say, yeah, but when a storm comes, it's going to blow away your house. Yes, but with 250,000, we can build another one. And it will even last for 50 years because that's the house we had all along. So there are different schools of thought here. That's why we have to look carefully when we talk of reconstruction, rebuilding. It must be tailor-fit, customized, based on your income bracket, the role your local government unit plays in the region. So many. And unfortunately, in the different layers of government, it was very difficult to explain that to the regional and national level because they would look at it as one. I mean, we were compared to fifth-class municipalities, wherein the income bracket was very, very low as compared to us. I had, for the first couple of months, organizations coming in giving 1,000 fishing boats. I mean, it's like, who goes fishing in Manila? It's difficult to explain that and tell people that. In fact, many times in the city government, when I have department heads that retire, they tell me, Mayor, when I retire, I'm going to put up a grocery. Then I ask him, are you a businessman? No. Then why put one? Because he ends up losing his money if he doesn't know how to run a business. He has to be taught. It's not as simple as that. So basically what I'm saying, like in a city like Tacloban, people prefer high, good-paying jobs. That they have less worries and they can focus now on getting better jobs. So what we did in the city of Tacloban, for the first 8 months, I had to defer taxes. Because I asked the national government, look, I have a mini Marshall Plan. The business sector here is not asking for dole-outs. They're asking for soft loans. Soft loans that even the city can share in paying for the interest for the next 3 years so I can produce more jobs. So I get the economy going in the regional hub, in the regional center, in order to help everyone. Because if you help Tacloban City, you help the entire region. People in the different municipalities and provinces do their purchasing in Tacloban City. If they don't, then another city takes up that role, which would be Cebu City. But to transport those goods to our region, it would be too costly, so the cost of living would go up in our region. So the good news is, we're back 75%. Our local economy is very strong now. And and I thank all of you, really. That was the driving force. Because nobody expected any help, really. Especially coming from outside of the Philippines. It was so touching, so heartwarming, and it was really the driving force that people cared. They understood the help coming from the armed forces. That's because of duty. But when they saw the support coming in, that, we would receive letters in boxes from children, elementary students from Singapore would write to Tacloban City. And I'd have to ask the students also in Tacloban to write them back, and we'd send it back to Singapore. That's how much support. But it's very difficult to go around the world to different Filipino communities, friends, to say that, yes, climate change is at hand. Because there's another argument to that. Is it the first time this happened in Tacloban City? No. 100 years ago, we lost 15,000 people. A super typhoon hit us about 100 years ago. What about the tsunami in Sendai? Well, 900 years ago, they had the same. So why is the climate changing if it happened before? See, that's another argument. But at the end of the day, really, it's being safe. It's living the right way. I realize, I for one, just like I know many of you, best place to stay is by the beach. Rich or poor, everybody loves to stay by the beach, by the shore. There are consequences. So I'm sharing this with you because many times we forget. And I want you to know, it is and it will happen. I was talking to several mayors here in Southern California last year, and I have mentioned that. They were saying that they're expecting maximum intensity 8 earthquake. What if you get 10 instead of an 8? We were thinking, we had storm surges about 1 meter high, but never 7 meters. Something we didn't expect, but it happened. So we go back to basics. So I'd like to leave you with that, and I'm sorry if I had more time and go over so many aspects and focuses, especially on how to bounce back, how to prepare, how to cope with a situation that seems hopeless. But just remember one thing. What will keep you going if you always think of others before yourself? And don't forget, there's always a reason why you're there. I'm fortunate to be alive, to be with all of you this evening, with my family. And I feel this is my mission, to tell everyone that it's not the end of the world, but at least it's good to learn from experience and be prepared. We are used to a comfortable lifestyle, but don't forget to go back to basics. Be careful. Study your surroundings. Know where the fire station is. Without utilities, can you cope? Without communication, can you cope? I had thousands of people running across the city the first 3-4 days because they couldn't use their cell phone. They wanted to check if their loved ones were still alive. So how could we get debris with all these people running around? So I said, you have competing priorities. But there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And there will be always competing priorities. Just stay focused.